Okay, it says we're live. Let's see if we are or not. Hello, people. So welcome to our Viva Love Note number, I don't know if it's number 3 or number 4. Anyway, one of those. It's 3. One of them. And we're here with the lovely Chana Studley today, who is going to be talking to us about health restored. But just before she kicks in and share some of her wonderful gems with us, I just wanted to remind you that we have our Splash of Viva party, pre-party to the big party that happens in October, but we've got the Splash of Viva party happening on the 6th of August, and that is a bonus for everybody who purchases one of our early bird tickets, which are on sale until the end of July. So we want to encourage you, if you want to come along to the party in August, which is an extra, then get your ticket before the end of July. And as far as we know, most of our speakers are going to be with us. We're still confirming all the numbers, but yeah, excited about that. So Chana, who is sitting in Israel, where it's very, very hot.
Yep.
Aircon and the fan on, so she says. Welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? I mean, we're still finding our feet with these Facebook Lives. We're no experts, that's for sure. I think Sue's probably trying to get herself on.
I'm listening.
And if you've got any questions, we may find them. We'd love you to like us and speak to us, and we'll try and speak back if we can find you. But Chana, we asked you if you would speak to us about health today, because I know you've got a really, really, I would say interesting, but more than interesting, really, we'll call it a miraculous story in some terms of your journey with health. And, we can kind of keep these to 20 minutes, so we're not going to ask you to tell us the whole story. We've got time for that. But I know you've got what would you say would be the biggest, I don't know whether it's a highlight or what you see for yourself as being your biggest transformation, let's call it a transformation, since coming across the understanding of the 3 principles?
Yeah, sure. Because this is something I find it quite hard to explain to people, because now I work with a lot of people with chronic pain and other kind of physical issues. They often say to me, so how long did it take for your pain to go away? As if I'm introducing them to a technique or a method or some kind of miraculous, I'm going to strike them pain-free or something. And I honestly have to say, I don't know, because when I came to the principles, it was purely out of curiosity and like amazingness of this understanding. I didn't come to it as a way to get rid of my pain. So I think my pain just kind of gradually faded into the background as I started having more and more insights about, this, like how the mind works and this wonderful understanding. And so I wasn't consciously aware of it until I suddenly kind of turned around and went, where did my pain go? And I'd had pain for 25 years. Just real briefly, I had 2 broken vertebrae in my neck, 3 herniated discs in my back, and I had sciatica pain that would shoot down my leg, and I was paralyzed 3 or 4 times. I mean, thank God it was temporary, but at the time when you don't know that, it's pretty terrifying. So pain had just become part of my life. Bad back, I was always, I was a teacher for 5 years, and I was always walking around with a hot water bottle on my back, or lying on the floor, or, it just was like one of those things I just thought I had to put up with. And from all I've learned now in the last few years, it's like the body is such an amazing thing. Like, we always talk about resilience and wisdom in our minds, but our bodies have it too. And it's incredible how, our bodies know how to heal themselves. And so that's been, I just love sharing that with other people. So, yeah.
I can jump in, so I've got lots of questions.
Well, yeah, no, you go first then.
I don't want you to think I'm
no, you go.
Hogging. But so the chronic pain, I think it's something that I've lived with for many, many, many years. I can really relate to that. Hence why Sue would say, yeah, you go for it because you've got questions. Something that I've heard you talk about is there was some sort of a research, some researcher who talked about discovering that people who have chronic stress, it's something to do with the back of his back of the brain, and people who have acute pain shows up at the front. I think, would you talk to that a bit, because I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, because that was, I mean, I've read a lot of pain research and pain science over the last couple of years, and some of it is phenomenal. But what I always find is those scientists, researchers, therapists, they always then go back into an outside, what we call an outside in understand or solution. Like they get that, you know, like these amazing things, which I'll explain. And then they go, but now you have to journal, or now you have to do anger management, or you have to, you know, like meditate, yoga, whatever it is. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. They're fabulous. But, you know, when you understand how the mind works, you see like, yeah, but it's so much more simple than that. So what this scientist discovered, her name was Dr. Hashmi. I think she was at Chicago University when she discovered this. She did research with about 100 people, and I say about half of them had what we call acute pain, which is like an immediate injury, like a burn, a fracture, something like that has happened, you know, in very recently. And with, I think it was fMRIs, where they do brain mapping, they could tell that that pain, you know, registers in the front prefrontal cortex, which is the, you know, like behind your forehead. That's, you know, like where it shows up. But as their pain healed, as their injuries healed, then the pain like went away. In the other group were chronic pain sufferers, and chronic pain is described as pain that lasts more than 3 months. And the reason it's more than 3 months is because all injuries, even a major surgery, will have healed by that point. So if you're still experiencing pain, that's why they call it chronic pain, because it's now obviously coming from something else, because the injury is healed. So with those people, when they did the brain mapping with them, they noticed that the pain was actually showing up at the back of the brain, which is where the amygdala is, like the emotional system, the limbic system is where it's, you know, housed in the back of the brain. And so when I read that, I was like, well, yeah, because like we say, you're always feeling your thinking. So if the pain isn't coming from an immediate injury, it's coming from the emotional part of the brain, then clearly my thinking is creating that pain. And in the group that had acute pain, they noticed that a few of them then went like carried on having pain, turned into chronic pain, and it shifted. It shifted from the front to the back of the brain. In fact, her research was called shape-shifting pain. And this to them was like, wow, you know, like pain can shift. I'm like, well, yeah, if it's, you know, it's created by your thinking, of course it's going to come from a different part of your brain. So I always introduce that to my clients, because it kind of starts to help see that, first of all, they're not making it up. You know, when I was having these pain, like back spasms that would, like, you know, make me scream out loud sometimes, I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't making it up. It really hurt. And the doctors who deal with chronic pain patients say that it's some of the most excruciating pain they've ever seen in clinical practice. In fact, I've had major surgery and it wasn't as painful as that. So, so the first thing I say to them is, you're not making it up, but the source of the pain is coming from the mind. And some people find that comforting and some don't, you know, because then like, oh my gosh, then what do we do? You know, but I found that fascinating, because then that puts me in control. I'm not a victim of my body. I'm not a victim of circumstances anymore. And for some people, it means that the pain starts to go quite quickly. And for other people, it does take time. And so it just, I think the science combined with this understanding really gives amazing insights into how we work. That before I would just listen to the doctors and they would say, oh, well, you've got pain because you've got one leg longer than the other. And I go, okay, but I still have one leg longer than the other and the pain's gone away. So, you know, it's like, I think for everybody has to come to that place where they what makes sense to them, you know, and that piece of research that you mentioned, that really made sense to me. It really explained a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it spoke loads to me when I heard you describing it. That's why I wanted you to just share it again, because I think just showing that how, and I love you know, the pain comes from an emotional place. Although I'm really pleased that you said that. I'm really grateful that you said there's no blame. It's totally innocent, because I think sometimes when people hear that it comes from your mind, it's like, well, then I must be making it up. That's kind of what sort of the initial thought is, oh, so you think I'm making it up then? And I imagine that you probably come across that with quite a few of your clients.
Yeah, you're right. It really isn't about blame. And I think one of the things that I found most beneficial for myself, and I'm seeing it now in other people, is this idea of having nothing on it, because the body still is going to maybe do things that we don't understand, and they're like, I mean, I say pain-free now for about 6 years, but I can get the occasional twinge, or stub my toe, or like have something happen, and I've learned, like Sid Banks's most famous quote is, if we could only learn not to be afraid of our own experience, that would change the world. Well, it's changed my world, because then I can, whether it's an emotional funky thought about, it could be anything, the list is endless of the things I can have a funky thought about, or it's an actual physical thing. I've learned I don't have to be frightened by it now, because the pain that if I do get a bit of back pain, like that twinge, before I would go, oh my gosh, quick, call the chiropractor, where's my ice, lie on the floor, like I'd have a whole routine ready, because I knew what was coming. And now if I have a twinge, I'm like, and it just goes away, because it doesn't materialize into anything, because I'm not putting any more stressful thoughts onto it. Therefore, I'm not activating any adrenaline and cortisol and all those stress hormones that start pumping around your body when you have anxious thoughts. And so it gets to fade really quickly. And and then I think the other great thing about that is that if it is something that needs attention, then I can think clearly through it. Like, for example, last year I had an asthma attack out of nowhere, and had I panicked, with asthma, that's the worst thing to do, because you can't breathe, but I just stayed really quiet, and I just knew I'd know what to do, or it would pass. And then last October, I had an emergency surgery on my leg. I had a cyst that got infected and abscessed. And it was really painful. It was like someone sticking a cigarette out on me, continuously. And when I walked, it was like razor blades in my leg. And they had to, disgusting, but they had to fix it. And and it was probably one of the most worst pains I've had in many years now. Thank God I've been pain-free a lot of the time. And I remember I was lying on the gurney in the hospital, and the surgeon in the emergency room was doing her stuff, and I'm obviously not looking. I'm like, and I remember in my brain thinking, this pain is too much. She'd given me an anesthetic, but it clearly wasn't working, and I was almost screaming. And typical Israeli doctor, she said, well, you shouldn't be feeling it. I'm like, oh my God, I am. And at which point I had this thought went through my mind, and it said, this is too much for you. And in that moment, this is weird, I kind of flipped into another part of my brain, like a safe part of my brain. Like we always talk about, you can fall into that quiet mind at any moment. And it's so nice to know that that's always there, because in that moment when the pain was too much, I was like picturing her with a scalpel, like digging into my leg. And when I flipped into this other part of my brain, it was like, I could still feel it, but I felt safe. I felt like I was safe and protected, and I could cope, and it was, it was going to be over soon. And then she squeezed some more and cut some more, and then it finally was over. And it was such, it was a very painful experience, but also it was such an amazing experience to know how that to me is resilience. That is, I think all human beings have this capability of looking, like self-protection, looking after ourselves, making, but if we go into panic, then I could have speeded right past that and not know it was there. So, because I've done that like in my distant past, gotten very anxious about things, and then not known that there's a quiet mind to fall into, not known that I could be safe even in a, potentially dangerous situation. So I'm very grateful for that, because it's, we all have it. It's there all the time for us to make use of, a quiet mind, even in the middle of chaos.
I think I can relate to, well, I haven't suffered chronic pain, so I can't relate. I can hear what you're saying. I think it is, to me, a miraculous story. But I was thinking that pain isn't, my reaction to pain is not always the same. So how much of that is the pain? And it really feeds into what you're saying, that once when I trapped my fingers in a door of a car door, and then we were just about to have some photos taken, and this doesn't matter why, but And it was so intense, it took my breath away.
Mm-hmm.
But because I had to do this thing, it was, so I got some iced water. I was sitting there, hand in a bowl of ice water, but it would come and go. It wasn't there. So when I got engaged with what was going on, no pain, then suddenly I would become aware of it. And experiences like that, I think, that really help an individual to see what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because one of the first bit of pain science I read was a doctor in Australia, and he said, we only experience pain when it comes into consciousness. Yeah. And that just like rang home true for me, because like you said, there's like, we've all had like maybe a stubbed toe, but if you're on the way to get the pizza, you know, it might not hurt as much as like if you were on, you know, you know, in other circumstances, you know, and phantom limb pain is a really great example of that, where, you know, you know, you hear these amazing stories about people still feeling pain in a limb that's not there. So how that can't be produced in the limb because it's gone. It's being produced in the mind. So, and I too got my finger stuck in a door, so I know what that's like. My front door here, I'm on the top of the building, so if I have the balcony door open and the front door open, sometimes a breeze of wind. I was standing outside talking to a neighbor, and then suddenly, wham! The wind shut my front door, which has a metal frame, with these 3 fingers in the hinge, and there is no room for fingers in that hinge. And the lady I was talking to, she went in, like, I'm sure we've all heard of fight or flight response. Yeah. There's a third one called freeze.
Yeah.
She froze. My fingers are in the door. They're at my eye level. I'm screaming. I can't get them out. They were in there for so long, it actually occurred to me to pull, which was not a good idea. But she just stood there and she froze. She could not move. Wow. And I had to like bang. Luckily, there was someone in my apartment, so I was banging on the door, like with my arm backwards, this other arm, to get the person inside to come and open the door. And so they were in there for quite a long time. So, and when I took them out, they were like in my brain, my fingers are gone. You know, that I kind of switched off. They were gone. And when I took them out, they were, you know, like if you had, remember plasticine or like making dough and you roll it and you cut it with a knife. That my fingers were like that. They were connected, but like just squished down to almost nothing in between. And look, they're all here. They work fine. It's like the body is an amazing thing, but in that moment, it was really interesting. It's a nice way to say it, but like I was quite panicked. But like just like how my brain was working, of like I was watching her, and I almost felt bad for her because she and sadly she hasn't really spoken to me since. I think she's so embarrassed. You know, she's so embarrassed that she wasn't able to help me. But it was just, that's how she reacted. You know, like we all have our own way of, you know, dealing with stuff, and she shut down. And so I think that's why I trained as a first responder, because I'm actually better in moments like that. Like that, my brain goes into action. Quick, do this, go here, go, like call that one. You know, whereas walking into the conference on my own, that's hard. I don't know if anybody else can relate to that. You know, in panic and moments and chronic pain and emergencies, like I'm fine, I know what to do. But in like just walking into a wedding or walking into a conference on your own, you're like thinking gets all busy.
So when people come to you, is it because they've heard there's something different? Have they heard you speak usually? I mean, it is quite different, isn't it? And I think with the 3 of us are in this conversation, and people watching may or may not know when we say, oh, because I've got the understanding kind of thing. And I was wondering, how do people find the path to you? Do you know? Or
yeah, I mean, I do have a Facebook group which has like almost over 1,300 people in it now. I mean, I don't know that they're all actively, you know, listening to everything I'm posting and saying every day, but there's several other pain groups which I kind of infiltrated, and you know, and I started going into them, and the people are posting all kinds of, you know, tragic stories and chronic pain, you know, nightmares, and then people are offering all these other techniques and remedies, and then I would just put things like, maybe you just don't have to do anything. And at first people were quite hostile to me, like, what do you mean not do anything? I'm in so much pain, you know? And I was like, you know, I didn't do anything and I'm pain free now, you know? And so, and then one particular group, there was one of the moderators of that group, he had a podcast, And he got curious about what I was saying. Like, I just kept saying things like, you know, maybe there's nothing to do. Maybe, like feeling your thinking is actually getting you into more trouble because it's activating. What if you had nothing on those thoughts or feelings? And he messaged me and he said, I noticed you posting all this wisdom. Want to talk about it in my podcast? And the fact that he used the word wisdom was like, oh, yeah. So we did a podcast, and that was almost like maybe 2 years ago now. And it got me, you know, established in that kind of pain management world. And so that a lot of people found me that way. And a lot of people are coming now saying, you know, I'm sick of journaling. I'm sick of like all this meditation, you know, like what is it that you didn't do that, you know, that you want? And so, yeah, like, tell me how to do that not doing thing, you know. So yeah, people have found me that way. And then also through Three Principles, you know, the conference and websites and stuff. So yeah, when we say this understanding, it really is, you know, like we call it the Three Principles, that, you know, this understanding that Sydney Banks put together, you know, over almost 40 years ago now. And so using those ideas of how we're living in a thought created world, that we, you know, we're always living in the feeling of our thinking, that when I applied that to the science, like I was talking about, you know, with where pain is only experienced when it comes into consciousness, it just kind of all fit together like a jigsaw puzzle for me. So it just seemed, I never imagined this was going to be my career, you know, because pain was just something I put up with. It wasn't something I thought was going to, you know, but to be able to help people with that is, you know, so I have a website, and I made a little animation to explain these ideas. And so it's just kind of like, it's kind of had this organic life of its own, and just, you know, people are showing up. In fact, today, this morning, I met with a physical, a PT, a physical therapist, and locally, and he's been sending me clients because he heard about what I'm doing. And I've just finished writing my next book, and it's with the editor right now. So my next novel is it's a chronic pain adventure novel. the world needs a chronic pain adventure novel, and so I asked him to read it because I wanted a medical, you know, like some input from a medical person who knew nothing about the Three Principles, and he loved it so much that he wants me to train him in these ideas. So. Wow. So that was a good response. And the other person I have reading it is an Olympic athlete. There's a lady here. She's in the Israeli Olympic marathon team. And so she's reading it. And so she's, you know, because dealing with physical bodies, athletes, you know, there is actually an athlete in the story. So, you know, I feel like it's about to like branch out even more. Like, you know, hopefully the book will bring these ideas to even more people. Yeah.
And it does seem to be so often that it's person to person.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of, it ripples out. I think it's a good expression, really. And people get curious because you're not saying what they expect to hear or what they've heard 1,000 times. Yeah. And it does, we have curiosity, and that's all part of the same wisdom, isn't it? Wisdom to be curious about something different.
Absolutely. Because when I did research with I had 5 volunteers, because when I thought about working with people with pain, I asked for 5 volunteers to, like guinea pigs, to see if I could recreate this in other people. And they all had varying results. They all got a little bit better to really better, which is great. But all 5 of them at the end of it, they knew nothing about the Three Principles or anything. They, like many people in pain, had gone to many different doctors and osteopaths and chiropractors and acupuncture and acupressure, and, you know, they'd done the rounds. And they all said to me how amazing it was that they felt that I knew that they were well, because they were so used to being talked to like they were a broken body, or that they needed fixing, or that there was something wrong with them physically, or if it's in the mind, then there's something wrong with their minds, that there was something to fix. And I just talked to them like healthy human beings. I mean, they arrived at my apartment, they got here, so, you know, we weren't meeting in a hospital, so I just talked to them like they were healthy human beings. And they picked up on that, and they all reported that back to me in their testimonials about how they loved the fact that I had faith. I knew that they were either well or they were going to get well. And I think that is something new, because people aren't used to that. They're used to being treated like they're broken and need fixing. Yeah.
Well, looking forward to hearing more.
Definitely, and I'm really pleased to hear that there's another book on the way. It's funny because I was going to ask you if you were writing a book about chronic,
Yeah, yes, it's going to be called Painless, because that's what, and it's a little bit of a continuation of the first one. I didn't really mean it to be, but that Deborah, the character from the first one, she continues and goes back to Australia and has a whole adventure with the chronic pain thing, because it's kind of my story, but not really. And I've already started 3 and 4 books. There's one about diagnosis and drug companies, and
Hot stuff.
a thriller, and then I'm going to write one about hormones, because it's like, because that was my yeah, but everybody has a yeah but, I think, when they come around the principles. Yeah, but my yeah but was, what about hormones? Get out of that one.
That's real.
I'll save that one for
let's save something for
I'll save that one, but yeah, that's what book maybe 3 or 4 is going to be about too.
Nice.
Fabulous.
Nice. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you, Hannah. It's been a delight to listen to some of your stories again, and yeah, we're really looking forward to having you with us at Viva.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Both of them. Yeah, maybe we'll have you on again. We don't know if we're going to do any more of these, but yeah, thank you so much for taking your time.
We were saying at the beginning, Hannah, that we'd never really explained what a love note from Viva is, and it is kind of, here's a living example. It's just, Viva's an event and it's wonderful, we think, but on the way there, this is the sort of goodness, that's how I refer to it, that we can share along the way, because it's a standalone. I mean, I think it's, to me, not having suffered chronic pain, I think it's going to be so well, it is so needed, and it will be so well received that as this spreads and grows. So, great work. Because it's a standalone. I mean, I think it's
great.
Okay. Can you with us, Sheila? Oh, we've lost.
I've muted myself because I was trying to get all technical, but it's not working. So.
No, okay. I thought, oh my goodness, she's gone into tech world. Yeah, lovely to see you, and I look forward to seeing you on the 6th.
And thanks to people that have been with us too. Well,
yeah, thank you. I can notice some of my friends that I haven't seen for years, actually, which is lovely. No questions on my side.
Okay, good. Well, we'll see you soon then.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.